What's up, Bills Mafia? Ryan Thomas here. It's good to be back, but it's even better to be back live. Of course, tonight's show streaming live, of course, as you guys are tuning in on X, Facebook, YouTube, wherever you're tuning in. I greatly appreciate the support. Of course, a lot to discuss tonight pertaining to my favorite football team and your favorite football team. Of course, that is the Buffalo Bills. Today being day one of Bills training camp, there's a lot of positional battles to discuss. There's a lot of new faces. There's some rookies. There's some free agents. There's a lot to discuss tonight. And it's safe to say I wanted to kind of take this into a different direction and discuss some players that I think are the keys to the Bills kind of getting over that hump. Before I dive into the show today, I'd like to mention that the show is sponsored by 26shirts.com for all of your Buffalo Bills, Buffalo Sabres, or just simply Buffalo gear. Go to 26shirts.com. You will find it there and then some. I saw a really cool design that Del Reed put out earlier today. It's kind of like a play on the Deadpool Wolverine movie that's coming out this Friday. It was a football and a buffalo. What goes better together than Buffalo football, right? So really excited to be on tonight. I see a lot of people trickling on right now, whether you're joining me on my Facebook or the Thomas Takes Facebook or my YouTube channel. Please subscribe if you like what you see. If you like what you hear tonight, please feel free to go to my YouTube channel, Thomas Takes Sports Podcast. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell. You'll get instant access to all of my content as well. Subscribe to the Buffalo fan base. This is something that is continuing to grow. That is the fan base that has been building as the base has been built brick by brick by guys like Justice General, guys like Scott Reed, Swank, as well, myself and many others. None other than Mookie Hawkins, who is one of my awesome guys that I love to talk to as far as Bills football. Guy that I really respect in terms of how he covers the sport. Really appreciate all the work that's gone into making this what it is. And of course, it wouldn't be possible without all of you tuning in tonight and any other night, I should say, tonight and any other night. So, of course, hopping on here to discuss the key difference makers, the players that I think are the key players to the 2024-2025 Buffalo Bills season. Now, as I go through my key players, I want to get a good kind of insight on who you guys feel will be your key players for the 2024-2025 Buffalo Bills season. And of course, that means you guys fire away your comments in the comment section below, wherever you're tuning in. Who are some players that you feel will be key difference makers, will be keys to victory in 2024-2025, helping us kind of bridge the gap that has just been there for whatever reason. We could talk about, every reason under the sun as to why this team might not be where they need to be, and why they haven't won the big one yet, and or gotten back to the big one yet, I should say. The Chiefs have been one of those reasons, and quite a few others, I'd say. But I'm ready to turn the page, right? Look at this season. New opportunity, a lot of new players, a lot of new faces. A lot of new players are going to be dependent upon for leadership. And some of those players will be new, and some of those players will be newer players to the Bills, players that have only been on the Bills for a short while. So I want to start off with a player that I think is a key player to the 2024-2025 season, and we'll just go right into this one. This one might be an obvious one to some, but I want to dive into this a little bit deeper in terms of Dalton Kincaid, the second-year tight end, 2023 Buffalo Bills first-round draft choice. The big question with Dalton Kincaid is whether or not he can become an elite pass catcher at the tight end position. You guys know it. I know it. The tight end position has evolved tremendously in this
league. And I think it started, I'd say maybe 20 years ago with guys like Jeremy Shockey and Antonio Gates, and Tony Gonzalez was doing it for a long time. Then you had the new breed of tight end in Rob Gronkowski.
Jimmy Graham was hot for a minute. And then you went to guys like Travis Kelce, George Kittle, Mark Andrews, now Dalton Kincaid, Sam Laporta, Trey McBride. Those are the three really young, really supremely talented tight ends. But it was looked at, and I think Brock Bowers will be joining that discussion this season, the rookie tight end for the Vegas Raiders, of course. But I think Dalton Kincaid is looked at among all those names that I mentioned as maybe at the tight end position. You go back and you watch his tape at Utah, there were a lot of targets thrown at Kincaid. Might not have been on the numbers, might have been high, might have been low, might have been inside, might have been outside. And Kincaid was able to make plays no matter what the circumstance was, whether the quarterback was hurt and he was playing with the third string quarterback or the backup quarterback, whoever it might be. Dalton Kincaid really thrived. And I think his rookie season was actually pretty telling in terms of what he's capable of. Because when you look at it, Kincaid came in with a lot of hype, but the Bills have a tight end already on the roster at the time. So when he's picked, Bills Mafia is feeling like this wasn't even our number one need. But Brandon Beane looked at it as, well, I can't turn down this kid's talent. I can't turn down the opportunity to have this kid in Dalton Kincaid as well as Dawson Knox. Well, in Kincaid's circumstances, his rookie season led to him getting more opportunities due to the fact that Dawson Knox rather got hurt and was hurt for a period of time. Josh Allen talked about this today, talked about how Knox going down provided so much more opportunity for Kincaid than what he could have even imagined his rookie season. And I do say to myself, in terms of players that were able to reap the reward from the Dorsey firing to the Joe Brady promotion, not only did James Cook reap the reward of that, but Dalton Kincaid did as well. And that's really, in a nutshell, what I think makes Dalton Kincaid such an interesting name heading into 2024, 2025. We could be talking about a year from now with a really good season. We could be talking about Kincaid as one of the best tight ends in the game, and yet he's in his only his second season at this time. Next year he'd be heading into his third season. So there is a lot of promise with a player like this, and it's a guy that, based on the roster construction or reconstruction, however you want to word it, with the departure of Stephon Diggs, with young receivers like Keon Coleman on the team, Dalton Kincaid is looked at as his role is going to have to increase. His production, how he is relied upon, is going to be at a much higher level than in previous years. So I'm feeling like Dalton Kincaid is a massive piece to the Buffalo Bills' success and is a massive key to the success of the Buffalo Bills this season. And when it comes down to it as well, I like to go back and forth and go offensively, defensively. I like to kind of look at players on both sides of the ball. But flipping those back and forth is pretty tough because there are young players across the board on this team, but young players that I think showed quite a lot of promise. I just mentioned Dalton Kincaid, and the next one that I'm going to mention is Terrell Bernard, who was the starting middle linebacker for the Buffalo Bills last season, expected to take over for Tremaine Edmunds. And I think coming off that season where he should have been an All-Pro, should have been a Pro Bowler, should have been talked about far more than he was, because there were plenty of moments where Terrell Bernard simply helped Buffalo close out games, simply helped Buffalo get over the hump of a bad moment. He'd create a great moment shortly thereafter. He's like this catalyst type player that whenever the chips were down, he would show up. He would be more than what we could have ever dreamed of. And dare I say it, I look back at the Tremaine Edmunds years. Buffalo had a lot of high expectations for Tremaine Edmunds. They traded up to get him. He's this long, lanky, freak athlete middle linebacker, drafted at 19 years old out of the VTech, right? Virginia Tech, first round draft choice out of the Virginia Tech University, that is. And the Bills couldn't keep him. He leaves. He gets a big money deal. He goes to Chicago, and you're wondering, okay, what's next? Well, then Buffalo the year prior takes a kid out of Baylor in the mid rounds, and Kyle Brandt of all people bites on the chicken wing and announces this player, and he's turned into his own, folk hero for doing that, as we found out at the Bison's game last week. But I don't think it would have hit as well if Terrell Bernard didn't hit as well. If it was just any other player, that wouldn't have worked as well for Kyle Brandt on the flip side. Whereas it worked really well for Terrell Bernard and Kyle Brandt, and I'm sure Terrell Bernard is extremely thankful for that. I was utterly impressed, to say the least, with the performance of Terrell Bernard. I was at the training camp last season, and I got the feeling that Terrell Bernard was kind of given the keys, didn't necessarily earn those keys. They just entrusted him to be the guy. And I felt like I wanted more of an open competition. I like to see competition in camp, and I felt like maybe they could have made that into more of an open competition. They didn't. And then Terrell Bernard was hurt. He wasn't even competing. It's like they're giving the keys to the middle linebacker position to Terrell Bernard, and he hasn't even really practiced as much as the other guys, the Dotsons and the backups that they had at that time. But then he comes back, he's ready for the regular season, and he put on a show. I mean, every single week there was a big tackle, there was a big forced fumble, there was a big interception. It seemed like one of the three took place at least once in a crucial moment of every week. And I don't think this kid has really gotten the credit that he deserves, because a lot of people look back on last season and they look at the fact that he got hurt and he wasn't out there for the playoff game against the Chiefs. I was devastated for the kid, thought for certain that had he been out there, it would have changed that game. I'm not saying Buffalo would have won, but it would have made a big difference. Buffalo was down to A.J. Klein, who they just signed, who was, flipping tires somewhere. I'm making jokes here, but he wasn't practicing. So wasn't working out, wasn't doing anything. So, I really think a healthy Terrell Bernard, and I love how I worded this, can an all-pro snub return to form? This is an all-pro caliber player. This is a guy that I've referred to on plenty of shows that I've been on over the last, 6 months as a new breed of the linebacker position. There were a lot of guys that would just be used as middle linebackers to just plug the holes of the running back lanes, stuff the run, limited coverage-wise, sideline to sideline tackling, but not sideline to sideline coverage. And with this 4-2-5 that is going to have some new wrinkles in it with Bobby Babich calling the shots, albeit Sean McDermott's defense, how much of that is going to, continue to exist, or will it coexist with Bobby Babich's new defense? And will he use Terrell Bernard in many different ways? I think he should, because I think Terrell Bernard can actually handle it. His skill is perfect for today's NFL that needs a linebacker to cover a tight end, much like why I put this kind of set list together. Dalton Kincaid, tight end. We know how versatile tight ends can be. We know that Kincaid can be moved around. He can be out wide. He can be on the inside. They can do a lot of different things with him. Well, Terrell Bernard, he can cover a tight end. I've seen it. I've seen him be out there with some of the best that the league has to offer. So really excited to see him back, and I know that he's chomping at the bit to get back in his own right. Now, this next one is the first rookie from the 2024 Buffalo Bills draft class, one that I did not expect to come to Buffalo. And it is not Keon Coleman. I am going to be talking about Keon Coleman, but make no mistake about it, I wanted to talk about this rookie first. I feel like I'm the only one that is talking about this rookie first on all the shows that I tune into, on all the tweets that I see, on all the articles that I read. I have seen few, if any, mention a player that Buffalo drafted on the offensive side of the ball that I think is going to be pivotal to their success in 2024, 2025, and that's rookie running back Ray Davis out of Kentucky. who I looked at pre-draft as a late round steal. Whichever team got him was getting a steal. I'm not saying Ray Davis is a 3-down runner. I'm not saying Ray Davis is better than James Cook. It's not what I'm saying. Ray Davis drafted as a rookie to be paired with James Cook with what Ray Davis has shown he can do, albeit 17 total touchdowns last season, leading Kentucky's offense in touchdowns, rushing, receiving combined. Ray Davis is a stud player. And I think the fact of the matter that he's a little bit of an older rookie, they look at that in some circles as a negative. I look at that as a positive. I look at that as he's got the experience, he's got the maturity as far as physically, that he can come into the NFL and he can be an impact, difference-making type player. People want to talk about these wideouts and how their wideouts are unbalanced and they don't have a great wide receiver core. Well, the wide receiver core is different. They don't have Diggs. They don't have Davis. But what do they have? They have a balanced, rotational run game. And I think that that's going to make a huge difference because Buffalo has had problems running the football for the most part over the last 4 or 5 seasons. With all due respect to guys like with all due respect to guys like Zach Moss and Devin Singletary, I think this rotation's better. I think James Cook, Ray Davis as well, Ty Johnson, maybe a little bit of the second gen Frank Gore in there as well. Buffalo could really have a young, underrated run game that could be crucial to being like a little bit of a security blanket for Josh Allen. I love Josh Allen as much as anybody, and I know that he can shoulder a load of the offense. But I think you got to take a little bit of that down from him utilizing the players around him. I think Diggs was a big reason why Allen wasn't able to utilize the players around him as well, because he felt like he had to get it to Diggs. And I think we're going to see this football moving between everybody on this offense. It's going to be far more of a complete, representation of NFL, NFL greatness, I think. So next, I piggyback off of Ray Davis with the RB1 of the Buffalo Bills. Bonafide RB1 of the Buffalo Bills, James Cook. Have him in my fantasy football 2024 top 10 at the running back position. The question with James Cook is, can James Cook expand on last season's showing? There were simply games where James Cook took over. Post Joe Brady being the offensive coordinator, James Cook averaged in total around 150 yards a game. So James Cook was a huge piece of success to Buffalo's run that saw them winning, 7 in a row, to capping that seventh win in a row, a road win against the Miami Dolphins, where that game was close in the first half. Deontay Hardy returns that punt, and then Buffalo's able to kind of close it out with a guy like James Cook. There were weeks where they were really able to close out some victories without putting Allen in harm's way, whether it's from the defense or sometimes from himself. Let's be honest, right? There's the gunslinger mentality for a reason, and sometimes that can lead to a mistake. Whereas I think James Cook, I expect so much more out of this guy, even in comparison to last season. There was a lot of room for opportunity that I thought was missed from James Cook, especially in the passing game. I go back to the Philadelphia Eagles, Buffalo Bills game where James Cook dropped that crucial pass. I keep thinking to myself, this guy caught everything at Georgia. He caught everything. What is going on? And a part of me wonders, is it Allen throwing the ball too hard? Is it just pressure? Is it just bad moments, right? So James Cook, a big piece, safe to say. That is an easy one, but I think there needs to be more added on to that. And what I added on to that is the fact that he showed a lot, but I think there's more to show. There's definitely more room to grow with James Cook than what we've seen thus far. Now, next, I go back to the defensive side of the ball. I go back to another rookie. I go to DeWayne Carter. Like it or not, love it or hate it, DeWayne Carter is the next piece of a Buffalo KC trade, which saw the Bills go from 28th to 32, and they retrieved the extra third in that trade by moving down 5 spots from the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs take wide receiver, the speedster Xavier Worthy. Buffalo takes Keon Coleman. More on him in a minute, but DeWayne Carter was the player that Buffalo selected with that extra pick, and DeWayne Carter was a need for the Buffalo Bills. When it came down to putting together a list of positional needs outside of wide receiver being the number one position of need for the Buffalo Bills post the Diggs trade, which I even thought pre the Diggs trade, wide receiver was the number one need, and I thought wide receiver was the number one need last year when they missed the boat on a few rookie wideouts. They ended up getting Kincaid, which, we talked about that. But my point is, wide receiver was the number one need. But if it wasn't the number one need, if they had enough at wide receiver, defensive tackle was by far their number one need. They needed a guy that can plug the middle alongside Ed Oliver. And they need a young one because DaQuan Jones isn't getting any younger. The rotational guys, they've been there. They've competed. They've done pretty well, but they're not blue chip type players like Ed Oliver is, like DeWayne Carter is. 3-time captain at Duke. We can talk about the NCAA and what teams are taken seriously football program wise, what teams are not. I don't think we're at a point yet where Duke's football program is looked at as an elite of the elite program. But I will say that there's been players over the years on every program in the nation that you could be a big school or a small school. That player in particular is special on that program. And that's what I'd say about DeWayne Carter being one of those types of guys. Is Duke looked at as the best program in the nation? Far from it. But each program, each collegiate program has a piece to it that is NFL worthy. And this was one of those guys. This is a guy that I watched, honestly, have a nose for the quarterback or the running back, or have an ability to rush a passer. The ball's already been thrown, but he can run down the field and try to tackle the ball carrier, whether it's the receiver or the running back. He's a very quick, agile defensive tackle. Guys that big should not be able to move that quickly, that instinctually, too. I think that's more than just physical speed. It's physical awareness of where he needs to be, how he needs to be there, and how he can get there. And I loved this pick. I really did. I thought that this was a very timely pick. Cole Bishop was a great pick too, but DeWayne Carter, I thought, great value for where they were picking at that time, to that being the number one need, in my opinion, comparatively to the fact that DeWayne Carter was, a third rounder and Cole Bishop was a second rounder. I thought it actually panned out really well. There were some people out there that thought DeWayne Carter was a higher rated player. Some people that thought he was a lower ranked player. Buffalo kind of met in the middle and decided to make this move. And I thought it was a very valid one, and one that I think, people are going to look at Buffalo letting the Chiefs get the fastest receiver in the draft. That's another discussion for another day. But Buffalo still got the receiver that they wanted, and then they also got a defensive piece that not nearly enough people are talking about. That's a big part of what they want to do, what they want to continue to do in terms of what they've done over the last 7-8 years, this rotational defensive line, guys that have been in and out. And let's face it, I think this defensive line, the prospects, if you want to call it that they've accumulated over the years, the Rousseaus, the Epenezas, the Ed Olivers, I think that they will finally this year reach their peak and show why they were first, second round picks. And DeWayne Carter, I think, is going to be a big piece to that, which is a great feather in his cap as a rookie. So now we go to the final player that I want to talk about as a key to Buffalo's success, none other than rookie wideout Keon Coleman. I feel like I've talked about Keon Coleman every single week in one way or another. I've dissected this kid from what people are saying to the pressure that he's facing. But I want to say it in terms of this. The fact that rookie wideout Keon Coleman has been talked about as much as he has in this short 2 to 3 month window, it's safe to say that the Mafia has forgotten all about Stephon Diggs. They're ready to move on from Stephon Diggs. They're ready to look at Keon Coleman as the future of the Buffalo Bills, skill position players, wide receiver, running back, tight end. And there are many people out there saying that, Louis Riddick in particular, that this kid's going to explode. And then you have his detractors. I don't think there is a more polarizing player under 22 like Keon Coleman. And a part of it is because the Bills decided to not only trade away Stephon Diggs, but to also let go of Gabe Davis and let him walk to Jacksonville. Because the Bills have been such a good team, largely in part due to those two guys, letting those guys go and him being one of their replacements along with Curtis Samuel, I think people really put so much pressure on this kid, but his personality is such that he really doesn't give a damn what people say. He's just going to go out there, give his best effort, and let the chips fall where they may. And I saw some tweets today that people were saying that Keon's slow and he can't get separation. I will not judge a National Football League player's prowess while he's wearing a short shorts and a tight t-shirt jersey. It's not football. It's practice. It's walkthroughs. It's day one. Way too soon to say that Keon Coleman's a bust. Way too soon to say that Keon Coleman won't be a factor in this Buffalo Bills offense. I think he will be. I think he can be. And I think he'll be a lot more than a factor. I think he'll be a benefactor to the Buffalo Bills for the foreseeable future and for quite some time. Gives the Bills a chance to, yes, retool, revamp, but also have a rookie contract at the game's soon-to-be most expensive position. You see guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown getting $35 million. You see guys like CeeDee Lamb holding out after he hears news like that. Amon-Ra is holding out. I had the best year ever at wide receiver. One of them, Tyreek Hill, too. He just signed a huge deal with Miami 2 years ago, and he already wants more money. So Buffalo took themselves out of that completely, and they're going to mold this kid from the ground up. And I think he's got the right attitude. I think he's got the right personality to really show what he's capable of. And all these guys that I picked, I think the world of. And a lot of people, are talking about Josh Allen and some of the, Ed Olivers or the Rousseaus or the guys that have been starters on this team, big starters on this team for the last few years. And I'm looking at the guys that are coming into their second year in the league or second year in the National Football League as a starter, rookies. I mean, I think we have been kind of proven in a negative way in this fact that the Chiefs, they've drafted so well in these last few drafts that defensively, I mean, they've won Super Bowls with 8 or 9 rookies on their defense. So rookies matter, drafts matter. And I think that the Bills did a really good job in 2024. And I think that could be a huge difference for this upcoming season and beyond. So there you have it. Hopping on the Thomas Takes Sports podcast once again behind the microphone, live on the Buffalo Fanbase Podcast Network. I really appreciate those that have given me their take tonight. I see those in the comment section below. Got some Kincaids, got some Ed Olivers, got some Cole Bishops, got a lot of different names out there that people believe can be difference makers to the Buffalo Bills. And safe to say, I cannot wait for not just football, but fantasy football. See what I did there? That was a really good segue. Mid-August, I think on August 14th, my fantasy football draft guide will be released. $9.99. You'll be able to get it on my website. And of course, it'll be, sent to you via email as soon as you purchase. So I'm making that happen. I'm working on that now, and I'm really excited to have another project, to work on, and one to, definitely share with you all that have continued to support me over the years and tune into this show. As of now, 703 people live. I really appreciate the support. You guys tuning in on X, you guys tuning in on Facebook, you guys tuning in on YouTube, and of course, the audio side of things that'll be tuning into this podcast as you are right now on audio, as this episode is uploaded to Apple, Spotify, Google, anywhere you listen to podcasts and you're driving to work, you can find the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. So with all that being said, I'm Ryan Thomas. That was the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Last and certainly not least, nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills.